Let's go. Streaming data free on the MTN network in South Africa.
This is Omnisport.
T's and C's apply.
England bowling coach Jeetan Patel was very pleased with his bowlers' effort on day one of the Test match against Pakistan. Although Pakistan made a mammoth total, Patel really liked what he saw.
Well, I think the toil they put in today was high end. The way they tried different things to take wickets, the different fields they had, the way they fielded. I mean, to take those three wickets tonight was testament to the work they'd done in the first two sessions, if I'm honest with you. I think we're pretty happy with how it's ended up, 4 down. Obviously, we'd like them 6 down, 10 all out, but you know, you're in the subcontinent and you're just playing different conditions. Carsey was amazing. He was up at 90 mile an hour. Gus taking wickets at the back end of the day through skill alone, let alone just the pace that he's usually produced. The seamers were fantastic. You know, they were dripping by the time they came back in, but they still went back out. And they still went back out with an energy to try and take another wicket and look for the next opportunity. I think they did as well as they could today on a wicket that didn't really suit them.
You know, the downside of all of this cricket happening around the world all the time is that, you know, in the olden days, and I say olden days, in the noughties, which isn't that long ago, is that there would be tour games. And part of the tour games isn't just to adjust to the pitch, but when you go to the subcontinent, I mean, for those who haven't been to Pakistan or India, it is like 35 degrees, but it's also, it feels like 150% humidity, you know? Especially if you're British and English, you need to adjust to the physical conditions of playing in 35 degrees for 10 hours a day, and the English haven't been able to do that. I think it makes for poor cricket both ways, you know?
I mean, there used to be a warning for England cricketers and New Zealand cricketers not to lick your hands on the when you're shining the ball because the quality of the water wasn't great. That's obviously changed a lot, but I mean, it is that tough. It's like little different nuances and different ways of trying to get wickets on pitches that can be very, very skewed towards the home team.
And then you can adjust your tactics. So, for instance, England could have gone in with 2 spinners instead of 1. You know, now they've gone in with 1. Now they're in big trouble. I mean, it's a pity that we're playing Test cricket in this context. It's almost like if you're going to do it properly. And doing Test cricket properly it's a completely different sport to, or almost a different sport to T20 and 50 overs, right? So. Listen, the English, this is what it is. You know, you went in with 1 frontline spinner and now they're in big trouble. We'll get into it a little bit. Hey, if you think that's bad, by the way, Ben Duckett, one of their better batsmen, has also suffered what looks like a dislocated finger. If you didn't see it, it looked absolutely brutal when it happened. England are chasing Pakistan's mammoth 556 first innings total, which was followed up by England being 91 for 6 at stumps yesterday. But that Duckett loss is massive because Duckett, outside of Joe Root, in the last 18 months has scored more runs than anybody. And that's big. You know, Crawley will obviously have a go up front. He's going to play baseball to the limit. But Duckett has really become the poor man's Alistair Cook, who's just that anchor at the other end.
Yeah, I'm sure that whenever they saw him dislocate his finger, they used a word that rhymed with Duckett. But you know, it is a big loss for them. So they're hoping, they're quite optimistic that he might be able to come back and play. But we'll see. I'm just following the scores live at the moment, and England are just ticking along. We're into the second or third over a play in the morning, and they're 104 for 1. So it's Joe Root and Zach Crawley at the crease.
Zach Crawley is not scared to bat quickly. Good for cricket. They're going to push it forward. It's I love how Brendan McCullum absolutely hates that everyone calls it baseball. But yeah, it is what it is, right? Mate, even as a player, Brendan McCullum was this guy. Relax, dude. Lean into it. He's clearly brilliant. He's clearly obsessed. And by the way, has he not got the dream job? He's allowed to live in New Zealand while doing this job like part-time. It's like remote working. Good for him.
Yeah, well, it's not really a full-time job, you know. It's not like a county coach or something like that. But no, he does a great job, and he came in. He was a bit of a surprise decision for a lot of people when he got the job. But he just seems to you know, I think just put in a breath of fresh air. Hit the ball, don't worry about it. Consequences require risks, and he's got his guys measuring that sort of balance between consequence and risk.
Well, we'd like that for the Proteas, because South African white ball coach Rob Walter says he's building depth for the next World Cup. He's not obsessed with results after the Proteas won the ODI series against Ireland 2-1. I'm not so sure how I feel about this one, Rob, because you're still playing the old players. You're just losing now. I mean, as we discussed yesterday on Omnisport Breakfast, that 7 of the 11 starters yesterday are part of the first team plan, whether we like it or not. So are you developing or are you not? I'm not sure what Rob's talking about here. Is he just trying to appease the masses?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the overall victory, so it's 2-1 against Afghanistan, which they lost that ODI series, and then the 2-1 win against Ireland. So it's a bit almost like a shared series. They've come out almost like betwixt and between. Not entirely sure what they want. And, have they got enough out of it? Rob Walter says he has. I'm not entirely sure what he saw. Maybe saw something from Tristan Stubbs. His bowlers were up and down. They don't seem to really deal with the hot conditions. Some of them look out of shape. There's a lot of issues.
You know, I was thinking yesterday as we were talking, you won't believe this. So if you didn't hear yesterday, we had a brilliant conversation with Stuart Hess. Go back and listen to it, omniaudio.africa. You can go and listen to the podcast with the esteemed Stuart Hess, writer Stuart Hess. You know, yesterday we were talking about it. When I got home yesterday, about an hour after the show, I had a friend phone me completely independently. He hadn't listened to the show. He was phoning me to go, brother, what's happening with South Africa not playing 5 test match series? You can't believe it. It was completely independent of what we were talking about yesterday. Yeah. Him and I spent half an hour on the phone discussing possible sort of solutions for this. And I thought to myself, are we just old guys that sound like get off our lawn? Or I'm 38 now. I'm moving into the era where I've got enough money to take me and, you know, whoever it may be to go watch the cricket, my nieces and nephews. Is if you're not providing for me, who are you speaking to? Because I'm about as hardcore cricket fan as you're going to get to. And I'm sorry, I just refuse to pay for a T20 ticket. Forget it. You're not getting me, you're not getting 300-400 rand out of me, no matter what tournament is, to watch T20 cricket. I feel like it's sort of candy floss. It's all the time. It's available all the time. No, thank you. I'm washed out. Who are you making the product for? I want to watch over New Year's 5 test matches and people being slated, of course. I mean, I've got enough money now not to sit with the yobbos on the wooden stands in at the Wanderers, but I still want to be there, you know, and absorb that environment. I want to be at the cricket. I want to take my nieces and nephews and sit and buy them ice creams and things like that, you know, but it's just not an option. And it was interesting that I had 2 phone calls yesterday about this, and it seems people my age are disgruntled, to say the least. So if Rob Walter thinks saying things like that is going to appease us, he's got another thing coming. Yeah. Have I got a story for you? If you're at home and you're a rugby fan, breaking news from a place with a hysterical accent, New Zealand. The Crusaders, the great Crusaders, are the most dominant force in Super Rugby, have signed former Wallaby James O'Connor. Now, this is an interesting one because he's been known as a bit of a bad boy, cocaine suspension. Australia sent him home for fighting with his teammates when he was younger. But they say at 34, he's matured and he's ready to lead the next generation of Crusaders players. Interesting one, James O'Connor.
Yeah, I mean, he had his Australian contract torn up at one stage for being a toxic influence on the environment. He, like you said, he was caught for cocaine. He was caught drunk at Perth Airport. You know, he made his debut at the age of 17, and he could have played for either South Africa, either New Zealand or Australia, because he's got South African grandparents. His parents are from New Zealand. Qualified for Australia, but there was just so much. I don't know if it was he went high too quickly and was basically had a big head. But then he kept being pushed around different positions, fly half, wing, fullback, centre. I mean, he's an extraordinary player, but he's an extraordinary handful.
Well said. We'll leave it on that note. That's exactly what he is there. Our question of the day. Liverpool had El Hadj Diouf and Sadio Mane. Everton had Idrissa Gueye. From which West African country do they all hail? That is our question of the day. We'll answer that at the end of the show. Coming up next, let's talk about how Ten Hag survived a 6-hour meeting yesterday from Ineos.
Listen live and on demand.
Welcome to Omnisport.